You're listening to the Daily Mishnah Podcast with Benedict.
We've said that someone who injures somebody else is going to have to pay damages in 5 dimensions in terms of permanent damage, pain, medical expenses, time off work, and shame or embarrassment. And the Rambam Maimonides comments in the Mishneh Torah that there are some kinds of blows. Actually, he says there are many kinds of blows. Yesh hakaot rabot, many kinds of blows. Sheyesh bahem bizui v'tza'ar, that involve embarrassment and pain. Actually, he says tsa'ar ma'at, embarrassment and a little bit of pain. Ve'ein bahen nezek, but no real damage. If you just, the classic is to slap at a party, right? You get slapped at a party. You're not permanently injured, but it's pretty degrading and embarrassing if you say something to someone at a party and they slap you. In fact, we have it in literature. She slapped him down. And so the Maimonides says, "Ukvar paskulahem chachamim damim kutsuvim," and our sages have ordained specific payments for these types of blows. So, as if the Rambam is going to say, look, you shouldn't try to quantify the embarrassment and the damage here. In fact, he says, look, this includes medical expenses and time off work and so on. The damage is not significant here. It's basically embarrassment. And we're going to try to quantify it. And the Mishnah, and when he says we're going to try to quantify them, he's referring to our Mishnah. So we've already seen the principle that everything is according to the kavod, according to the dignity of the person being injured and the person doing the injuring. But we're still going to give fixed sums. And the Mishnah begins, "Hatokea lachavero." Tokea, someone who is a tokea. Now, this might be literally the word tokea means to blow. Might this mean to blow a horn in his ear? Maybe. It might mean to hit him in his ear. Might mean to blow something loud. It might be to slap him. We're not quite sure. Anyway, hatokea lachavero, someone hits his fellow or blows a horn in his ear or hits his ear. Noten lo sela, he gives him a sela, which is 4 zuz. Remember now that the minimum dowry, just to get the 4 zuz into perspective, the minimum dowry in a wedding is 200 zuz. So let's get the 4 zuz into perspective. Rabbi Yudah Omer, Mishum Rabbi Yossi Aglili Maneh. Rabbi Yudah says in the name of Rabbi Yossi the Galilean, a maneh is 100 zuz. So, and the halacha doesn't go according to Rabbi Yudah, by the way, but clearly there's already a discussion about what the proper sum is. And maybe Rabbi Yudah is talking about a different sort of person from the person that the first voice in the Mishnah is talking about. Sitaron or 10 lo 200 zuz. If he slapped him, he gives him 200 zuz. If he hit him with the back of his hand, somehow it's more embarrassing to hit someone with the back of your hand. With the back of his hand, noten lo 400 zuz, with the back of his hand, he gives him 400 zuz. This is twice a normal twice the sum of money on the ketubah. It's a large amount of money. Saramba ozno, if he tore his ear, talash basaro, he pulled out some of his hair. Rakak, he spat at him. Vehigia boruko, he spat, and the spit actually touched him. So he spat and the spit hit his face. This is really the archetypal type of injury which the Rambam, which Maimonides is talking about. There's no physical injury at all here, but it's just deeply shaming to have someone put spit on your face. Actually, there's a story about Rabbi Meir, actually, who has a woman who clearly he'd wronged this woman. He has him spit in his eye. He has her spit in his eye 7 times. There's something deeply, deeply degrading about having someone spit in your face. And by the way, the final example the Mishnah brings, Hara Rosh Ha'isha Bashuk. He bared a woman's head in the public street. And when it says Ha'isha, I think we're probably talking about a married woman. We're talking about someone who doesn't normally bare her head in public. He's ripped her head covering off in the street. Again, it's like spitting. There's no physical damage, but it's deeply, 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 deeply degrading. No, 10 arbame odd zuz. He gives 400 zuz. He gives 400 zuz. He gives twice the amount of money, which is the standard sum in the ketubah. And then the Mishnah goes on to say, this is the general rule. All is in accordance with the person's honor. So it's not quite clear here whether these sums are standardized or whether they're for someone of great honor or small honor. It's not quite clear. And the Mishnah is going to draw this out with a story because Rabbi Akiva will disagree. Amar Rabbi Akiva said, Afilu aniyim sheb'Yisrael ro'in otam ke'ilu hem b'nei chorin sheyardu minischehem. Even the poorest person, even the poor in Israel are regarded like free people who have gone down in the world, who've lost their possessions. They're kind of honored people of great family, and they just happen to be on bad times. In other words, they're all due honor and respect. Even the poorest person is due honor and respect. Why? Shehem b'nei Avraham, Yitzchak ve'Yaakov, because they are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Really interesting, by the way, that Rabbi Akiva is starting with Abraham. So he's including, I would think by inference, the children of Ishmael and the children of Esau. He's including the Arabs and the Romans. Really interesting, because they are the children of Avraham, Yitzchak, ve'Yaakov. Umaaseh, and now we're going to have the story. Umaaseh echad she para rosh ha'isha bashuk. So someone actually bared a woman's head in the street. So someone did this. But lifnei Rabbi Akiva, she came before Rabbi Akiva. Interestingly, she represents herself. So she's clearly going out to court. She's not stuck at home. She goes before Rabbi Akiva, and he obliged him to pay her 400 zuz. He fined this guy 400 zuz for bearing her head in the marketplace. But he's clever. Marlo, Rabbi Tenli's man, he said, Rabbi, give me time. We've all seen this negotiation tactic. He said, Rabbi, give me time. Venatan lozmana, and he gave him time. So what's he going to do? Shemara omedet. I've translated this as he caught her, he guarded her, he saw her. Somehow he sort of got her into a position where omedet, she's standing. Al pesach hatzera v'shavaret hakad b'faneha. He caught her standing at the entrance to her courtyard. So she's on the boundary of the public space. She's on the courtyard is kind of a semi-public space, but she's on the boundary of the courtyard leading out into the street, into the shuk. And he breaks this jug. He breaks this jug on the ground. Uvok isar shemen. And it had an isar's worth of oil. An isar, I think there might be 4 isar in a zuz. Isar is basically, it's not a lot of money. It's just not a lot of money. It's a trivial amount of money. There was an isar's worth of oil in it, in this jug, a little bit of oil, or a little worth of oil anyway. Of course, we shouldn't waste oil. We'll see in a minute. We'll see by the end of the Mishnah. We don't waste things. We'll see. Anyway, Gilta et Rosha. She uncovered her head. She's standing at the entrance of her courtyard. She uncovers her head voluntarily. Gilta et Rosha ve'haita metapachat umanachat yada al Rosha. She uncovered her head. She scooped up the oil in her hand and she put her hand on her head. In other words, she kind of soaked the oil into her hair. I guess, well, we're not going to waste good oil. And one of the things you could do with oil is you can just, use it on your head. You could use it for your hair. They didn't have conditioner in those days. So she put it on her head. She's, of course, voluntarily uncovered her head. Emid aleha edim. So he set up witnesses against her. He brought witnesses. He set this whole thing up, right? He's got witnesses. So he brings witnesses against her. Uva lifnei Rabbi Akiva, and they come before Rabbi Akiva. Amarlo, he said to him, Rabbi, my rabbi, Lazo ani noten arba me'ot zuz. Should I give 400 zuz to someone like this? Amarlo. He said to him, Lo amarta klum. He said, you have said nothing. In other words, you have proved nothing with this incident. Someone who injures himself, even though he has no permission to do so. We can't. The Torah doesn't allow self-injury. You shouldn't injure yourself. You have to take care of yourself. Someone who injures themselves is patur. They're not liable. And in spite of that, acharim shechavlu bo chayavin. Even though that is the case, others who injure him are liable. Just because someone doesn't take care of himself doesn't mean that others are allowed to damage him. Just like we learned in the previous Mishnah, that someone who is a minor or is mentally deficient or is a cheresh who can't communicate, just because they lack legal capacity does not mean you can take advantage of them and damage them. And similarly, someone who damages himself can't be taken advantage of. And the Mishnah goes on, hakot seis, netziyotav, someone who cuts down his own trees. We can't cut down trees. It's a halacha. You don't destroy things in the world. You cannot cut down even your own trees. You should not be cutting down. You shouldn't be cutting down trees. But even though he's not allowed to do so, he's still patur. He's still exempt. If others cut down his trees, they are liable to pay damages. The fact that someone might cut down his own trees does not allow another person to do so without the responsibility for paying damages. Now, of course, this Mishnah raises much greater questions. Well, to what extent are you allowed to self-injure? Well, those questions will be dealt with in the following Mishnah, which we will look at subsequently, which is the closing Mishnah of the chapter. But our Mishnah, this is the 7th Mishnah of the 8th chapter, is it the 7th? 7th Mishnah, the 6th Mishnah. Our Mishnah, the 6th Mishnah of the 8th chapter, closes with the idea that just because someone damages their own property does not exempt you from liability if you damage it too. And I suppose, in the words of Rabbi Akiva, even the poorest person in Israel is considered like someone of great family who's come down in the world, like the children of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Daily Mishnah Podcast with Benedict.